Hi, I'm Ross Tayler, your host and guide for Sacred Sundays, a space to slow down, tune in, and return to what's sacred within and around you. I'm also a life coach who supports empaths and sensitive souls, guiding them on the journey back to self-acceptance and inner alignment. My passion is connecting with like-minded souls, and these conversations are part of fulfilling my purpose and serve to deepen our collective exploration of what it means to live in connection with the sacred. Some weeks you'll hear a sound-based offering to open the space, other times we'll simply begin in conversation. However it unfolds, this is an invitation into presence, connection, and the beauty of the unseen. If you enjoy these conversations, please subscribe, rate, and share so others can find their way here. So pour a cup of tea, settle in, and let's begin. Today on Sacred Sundays, our guest is Celeste Satya. Celeste is a multi-dimensional guide, frequency weaver, and founder of HeartSpace Sacred Living Centre in Summerland, BC. With nearly 30 years of experience in meditation, yoga, and sound healing, Celeste blends ancient wisdom with modern resonance, supporting others in awakening, remembrance, and deep embodiment. Through her visionary teachings, soul readings, and ceremonial work, she helps people reconnect with their true essence and live from the heart. Welcome, Celeste.
Hello.
It's so good to have you on the podcast. Celeste and I have known each other for about 10 years, and at one point you were my supervisor at a wellness center that we both worked at, and we've maintained a friendship during that time and after working there, and it's so great to have a conversation today.
It's so great to be here, Ross.
So many places where we could start, and I'm just curious about what are you up to right now? What has got you lit up as you do the work that you do at the moment?
There's so much that's lighting me up right now. I guess the very newest thing is I've been looking for a home, a location to start a sweat lodge here. And so 5 years ago, when I moved to this area, I got together with an elder and we started a sweat lodge and they moved away. And so I've kind of been like looking for this land, this home to have a sweat lodge. And in the last week, two locations have popped up. And it's been different this time because 2 years ago something was coming up and I felt like I was forcing it. I was trying to make it happen, really almost like a desperation to recreate what I had on the coast with that
Mhm.
community in the lodge there. And what's happening now is 2 years later, this is coming onto my plate and it feels so spectacular. And I've been having these dreams of how it's going to unfold and what I need to do. And the fact that two have now come up in literally less than a week. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm pretty excited because my partner, Brent, and I will be hosting this together, facilitating this together. So it's really our first stepping into co-creation, which we do it every day, but we haven't
Mhm.
done it outwardly for the community together in such a way.
Oh, that's amazing. And I imagine that you've gone through quite a process in terms of becoming lodge keepers. How has that looked for you?
I'm trying to think of when I started being involved with the sweat, and that was, gosh, 20 years ago, probably 20 years ago. My first lodges were out in Paradise Valley with the lodge keeper was Windwalker. And so doing several with him. And then, of course, with Gaia Sophia. Then when I moved here, I found an elder. He's not from the Silk Okanagan people. He's from Cree Nation from Alberta, and he just took me in. And so 2 years ago, he had bestowed upon me to be the water pourer, and that was just a real honor. But I've been a water pourer without a lodge,
Mm.
so yeah,
And it's interesting because Mark, who hosts the Sacred Village podcast, which this podcast is associated with, he's got a
yeah.
lodge up in Enderby as well. So
Oh,
that might
so
be a
is
good
there,
connection to make, actually.
yeah, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. And say more about the HeartSpace Sacred Living Center.
So that's been a recent. shift of the name in this past year. HeartSpace used to be HeartSpace Yoga, and I mean, it still is HeartSpace Yoga, but really Sacred Living Center, because in some ways I feel like the yoga is really the smallest part of what is happening here, besides the yoga and the meditation. And then there's different treatments and readings, workshops, events, you name it, that happen here. But really, it's this place where I've seen community gather and I see community grow. And so our mutual friend Shayla was the one who offered the name out, Sacred Living Center. And as soon as she said it, was like a bell ringing, and
Mm.
it felt just so much more aligned. I know when I picked the name Heart Space Yoga 5 years ago or 4 years ago, it was to get people in the door to be aware that I was here. It was in the middle of lockdown, and I just wanted people to understand that I was here. But what has transpired from that point to now has been beyond my wildest dreams, and having a new name, just it really lands. And so that Sacred Living Center is because it's in all that we do, everything that we offer, our community, our connection. And probably one of the most beautiful things I've been so honored to be a witness to is people who walked in the door 4 years ago for a yoga class, who I see now standing as pillars of our community,
Mm.
who've moved through not knowing where to look or where to turn, but who are now holding space for others who are beginning their journey. And it's, yes, within these walls, but it's extending out into other offerings, other community. And it's that commitment to sacred living in all that we do.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
I just got chills as you were saying that, because we are kind of the torchbearers, right? That are
Yeah.
passing the torch on to the next layer of people that are stepping into the self-discovery and learning about their gifts. And what would you want to say about that specific piece? Because I imagine there's people that listen to this podcast that they're on the edge of like learning about these gifts or learning about themselves or stepping on this journey.
What would I say? I guess one of the things I say in my classes, my meditations all the time, is be still and then listen for the movement and the rhythm underneath the stillness. We're so busy reaching for the next thing. We're so busy reaching for the next piece of information to put in our head. Because if I only understood a little bit more, then I would get it. Then I would be at peace. Then I would be connected. Then my gifts would open. And what I witness is the more people are reaching, the less they're sitting back to embody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spend a lot of time with people really doing embodiment practice and beyond the regular yoga poses, because even that can become dutiful, and even beyond the regular meditations, because we're so used to like, let's stick between the lines. Let's go in this direction. And so giving people this question, where's the stillness? Where is the movement? Where can I, like, it's breath and movement and curiosity and discovering what it is that you want. It's discovering where you are in this moment and letting go of reaching for the next thing. I always give this analogy to my clients when they come in and see me for the readings. Um, it's like if you've ever had a cat, that you see a cat and it comes and it wiggles and rubs itself up against its leg. Well, that's us in this, our spirituality, our connection, our community comes and kind of rubs against us. And we're like, oh, that feels nice. That feels good. I want to do that. But as soon as we rush to go pick up that cat, it pops away.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're like, well, why did I miss it? Why did that cat go? And then it plays back and forth and the same thing happens again. But if we just sit still and we just breathe into being, then the cat comes and it sits on our lap. I've been saying it for years, but it's like our becoming happens when we sit in stillness and learn that there's rhythm beneath the stillness.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people sit in stillness with rigidity. And so it's like, how can we sit in the stillness and feel the rhythm and feel the flow? And that's when the cat sits in our lap. You know, when we're in our own connection, that's when our community arrives. That's when the creativity or discovery or spiritual connection arrives. But to let go of that reaching, I think is really hard for a lot of people, because we're bombarded with
Mm-hmm.
offers, you
Yeah.
know, and it's also a bit funny because I'm someone who offers, you're someone who offers. And yet I'm saying, reach for less, go inside, listen to yourself, be still. And so learning that stillness instead of stuckness, sometimes it's a learning curve. And I watch people, if they've arrived, whether they're rigid or disconnected from their self, I see this process. And for most people, it's about anywhere between a month and 3 months. And then all of a sudden you see they are just completely free, completely full of movement. They light up when they move because they're finding a part of themselves that they've been disconnected to for so long.
Your articulation of that is quite beautiful because I love how you described that. I mean, I know this. I'm not even sure I've experienced it to the depth that you described. But one thing I know for sure for myself and the people that I work with, most people seem to be oriented outside of themselves, looking for
Hmm.
something outside of themselves, bombarded with information, like you said. And
Hmm.
so I think what I love about what you said is like you just demonstrated or talked about this clear pathway to return to yourself and that it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And we need
Hmm.
to like release some of these things and contemplate and learn and it's a process.
It is a process. And it is, we've heard this many times as well over the years, but it's a spiral,
Hmm.
right? And even using our breath work from our root to the crown, and you're sitting still, but if you feel your breath moving, you start to feel the rhythm within you. And that rhythm, that spiral ebbs and it flows,
Hmm.
and it reaches and it rises. And there's all this space in between the spiral. And it's
Yeah.
that sacred space in between, that sacred pause in between is where we find the truth, I think.
Hmm.
At least that's where I found it.
Yeah. And I think back to when we worked at the center together, it was interesting because clients would come there for 4 to 6 weeks
Hmm.
or more sometimes. And the transformation that would happen, and part of the offering was yoga and meditation every day and practices that supported like food and there was a visible transformation that would happen for these guests when they committed to these practices and when they started to get to know themselves because they were for the first time in a different environment that was actually supporting them with all these pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you also do other work. So perhaps you could share a little bit about that. Like there's some new ways of sharing with the world that have emerged for you.
Yep. Yep. So, I mean, before I get to that place, like I'll say, so yes, the yoga is the thing I've been offering for almost 30 years, and the meditation and the sound journeys and all of that has its own component. And I want to say it's just so beautiful how more and more people are open to exploring that piece of it. When things opened up for me, it was actually almost exactly a year ago when things opened up for me. I wasn't looking to open anything up. I wasn't trying to open anything up. But for the prior 4 years up to that point, of course, I left working
Hmm.
at our former employer and didn't know what was going to happen. But the one thing was about stepping into that stillness. And I think when I let a lot of things go by the wayside, that's that was all part of that spiral moving into what happened a year ago. And in fact, kind of drawing full circle to the beginning of the conversation, I was in preparation for holding a sweat lodge. And I had a land that lined up, and I felt like I was forcing, trying to make
Hmm.
it happen, trying to recreate. And I just went through this process with myself of surrendering and letting it be whatever it was going to be. And that's when everything shifted. And so this sort of piece I don't really share a lot publicly. I've shared it with my community, but I would say, I don't want to say messages, but knowings, connection, communication started coming through really clearly for me at that point in time, and very specific even about that lodge at that time. Um, Information about what I was to do for the ceremony was, I guess it was I hate using the words, but downloading.
Hmm.
I was integrating this information. I don't call it channeling. And so from that point to now, it's just been this constant evolution. I can look back and see through my whole life where it was showing up, where it was making itself known to me. There's many examples I could give of times, but my present self or my present self at that time would brush it off or make an excuse of why it was happening or what it was. And I belittled it really. And the difference is having these last years in that rhythm beneath the stillness, I was able not only to receive the messages, but to embody the messages. I was sitting still and the cat landed on my lap.
Mm.
And so what it has transformed to is, I guess, a big part of what I do. I do what I call frequency work, which is similar in a way to Reiki, but the information I'm being given is it's landing differently. It's very much a tuning fork. It's not a, it's taking the structure off and listening to my own tone, my own frequency, and meeting each person who comes before me and meeting where they are at in that moment. And so that's probably my most frequented service that I offer. I'm also doing soul readings, past life, interdimensional readings. And it's been, even though it's happening through me, I feel like I'm just witnessing everything that goes on. I have people who are seeing me for stress, anxiety, depression, cancer, relationships, things like they're coming for all different reasons. And the one thing that seems to so far be true is that when people leave, they say they have felt such a sense of calm and connection to themselves. And I've been really blessed to get a lot of really good feedback because even though it's happening through me, I'm still sitting here in wonderment and I don't know what's going to show up at any given time, which sort of leads to the other component that has happened over the last year, which is that light language arrived in my life. It wasn't something I really knew much about or followed or anything. And I was actually taking my dogs out for a little walk when it happened. And I was looking at a tree and there was a bird in the tree and my mouth opened and the light language came out. And I started to laugh and there's a moment where I thought, well, maybe I'm making it up. And I found it started to come and it sort of landed now at this point. Now, this is a year later where it's like I have a relationship with it. It's not ruling me and I'm not reaching for it again. It's landing and it often will show up when it wants to. And of course I can filter it and stop it. But I know that there are times where I feel the filter go up where it wants to stop. And it's this discernment of maybe the person is not ready. Maybe the situation is not calling for it. And so then I hear it rather than speaking it auditorily, then I'll just hear it in my head. And so what I've come to know about this is when I'm doing my frequency work, when I'm doing my soul readings, or whether I'm actually speaking the light language, this light language is moving through me at all times through my heart center, through my sun womb center. And part of the information that I've been given is that I'm here to be an activator for other people, to open up their gifts. And it's been wild watching that happen within my community. I don't even think I've even said that out loud to them that I've been told that I've been told I'm this activator, but I've watched people go from being quiet and disconnected to waking up to these gifts that they didn't even know were there. And so when I say all this, I don't think it's me that's making this happen within them. I'm like a key for the door,
Hmm.
right? Or maybe I'm the doorway. I'm not quite sure what the analogy is. And so it's been fascinating. And prior to our meeting right now, we talked a little bit about, should I sing a chant? Should I not do a chant? But that's one other thing that's been coming through me is all of these songs and chants are
Mm,
coming through, which is not anything in my whole life that's ever happened before. And it surprises me when it comes. And I feel like I'm stepped outside of myself and something is moving through me, which I've always felt when I'm teaching class.
mhm,
But now it's like I've really gotten out of the way and I just like my oversoul take over,
right.
really is how it feels. Yeah.
So here we are, like, we're at this moment where there's about 10 things that I wanna ask questions about, and I knew we'd get
Yeah.
here eventually. And I guess the first one is, I have a memory of sitting with you at work,
Yeah.
and we were talking, and you were doodling. Like, you were talking about how somehow you were getting messages while you doodle and scribble, and that it helped you to move energy, and it makes me think about that you're doing these things.
Yeah.
And that's maybe a piece of the puzzle that you weren't, I mean, you talked about it to me, but maybe you didn't talk about it to others.
Yeah.
Like, is that something that you're referring to?
That would be like one of the examples. I actually hadn't reflected on that particular, but as soon as you say it, my whole
Mhm.
system lights up and I can feel it.
Right.
But many things like that where I knew and yet because in society we're taught to play small,
Yeah.
right? And you know, really until the last, well, I don't know, maybe 20 years, but maybe less than 20 years, you know, this was still on the outside of, like, I'm using my big air quotes, but norm, right?
Mhm.
And as much as I never fit norm, there's a part of me that was conditioned to feel like I had to. And so it was, yeah, things like that where I just doodled on the paper or sent the frequency out and saw the visions. And then the other part of me convinced myself that I was just playing. And now I'm like realizing, oh, I wasn't playing all along. I wasn't playing. It was in training.
Mhm.
I was learning how to
Yeah.
become who I truly am.
And I think I asked that question because I'll bet there's a lot of people out there who have that very same kind of experience. They don't
Hmm.
minimize something. They don't think it's anything. I mean, it's classic, right? We don't know what we're doing if we just think it's normal. Like, it's like the example of the fish out of water doesn't know water until it's out of water, right?
Yeah.
And so I think younger generations, they have all these gifts and they don't know that they're gifts. We're the ones trying to figure out
Yeah.
these gifts.
Yeah.
These older generations, right?
I,
Myself included.
I would, you know, stretch to say that all of us have it, really.
Yeah.
No, I really do. And we have different roles and we have different things that we're tapped into, but there is something there for everyone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 And you use the word embodiment. It's a word
Yeah.
that we hear a lot these days. And I'm curious about your kind of perspective on embodiment. Like, how, sometimes we hear the word so often, we don't really think about what it means.
Hmm.
What's the meaning that you give to embodiment? How do you simplify it for folks?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, how do I simplify it for people? I think it's just continually inviting people into that space, like in repetition to get them to feel it. And, you know, I have students who get it right off the bat. I have students who I've had for 4 years who are still maybe not getting it as much, right?
Hmm.
Everyone in their own time. And a big part of it for me is like connecting our body and breath and being in that place of curiosity and being the witness. And I guess a big change for me is, I don't know if this makes it embodiment, but when I shifted with myself from thinking, like maybe if I had a thought about myself or someone else or a situation, and I might think, oh, I'm being critical or I'm being judgy. And what has shifted within me is actually realizing that I'm actually having discernment of what that is. And when I reframe it from the standpoint of being in discernment, I can actually like shift like back and anchor in Because when we say, oh, it's a judgment or we're being critical, we tighten and we close up. If we say it's discernment, we soften, we settle back in, and we get curious. What am I being discerning about? Where is that coming from, right? So for me, questions are the keys. Whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, if we're in that place of question and what our truth is, then we can start to embody things. If we think we know the answer, chances are we're not embodied.
Hmm.
I don't know if that made any sense.
Oh, I think it did. And it makes me think about how, for a lot of people, the body hasn't been safe. And so
Hmm.
we're outside of our bodies. And so to come back to that, that's why it takes time, because we need to create that level of safety.
Yes.
But I believe, after working with human design for quite a while, it's like I'm simply reflecting information that is already in everybody.
Hmm.
It's not new information. It's information that's there waiting to be activated.
I agree.
And just like anything, whether
Yeah.
it's our power, whether it's our voice, whether, like, we have a voice, it's there waiting to emerge. It's not like we
Yeah.
have to create it from scratch. And I think the reason I asked the question is because you have a way of speaking about things that is really, I think, unique and providing a different level of perspective. Before I left the Okanagan, I was sharing with you that I had started a yoga practice, and you were talking to me about the subtlety of a twist versus a rotation. I think that was the word you
Yes.
used.
Yeah.
And so every time that I'm doing a twist, or someone says do a twist, I'm thinking about that and
Yeah.
relanguaging it. And so those are the kind of things that you offer, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. I don't know where I first heard it or what person said it, but it stuck with me for years. But every moment matters.
Mm,
And to me, that's not about putting so much pressure on yourself about, oh, every moment matters. So I have to be perfect in every moment. But every moment matters in the sense that it's an opportunity to reframe it in alignment with where you want to be.
right.
And so, even in simple things like using the word twist or rotation, twist has the connotations of like tight, forcing, whereas rotation has more of a gentle, smooth flow. And so, whatever the word or situation we're in, are we framing it from the most alignment of where we want to be?
Hmm.
Not necessarily where we feel like we are in this moment, but where we want to be, where we're going.
Hmm.
And if we can arrive in that through the way we show up with ourselves, the words that we speak, the conversations we have with other people,
Hmm.
um, I think that actually is what creates the safety because even within ourselves, we're so used to pushing, forcing, going beyond, going to the next moment with just one more thing to do instead of just arriving here and being. One of the things that comes through when I do soul readings for people is often about the voice.
Hmm.
And so we can be shut down in our voice, kind of go in reverse, but we shut our own voice down with our own inner critic, our own judgment. Generally, we learn that someplace earlier in our life from a parent or a role model or partner. But what's really been interesting for me with these soul readings is finding where we lost our voice in past lives and things often that we are butting up against that aren't in this. Like we might be repeating it here, but where did that begin? And so all of that comes into play with how we either hold ourselves tight or how we go into flow in this moment.
Hmm.
And for myself, I feel like I've resolved things like with my husband. We've had little things come up and then look into the past life and now we suddenly understand each other and poof, it's like really just like dissolves in the present moment. I would say with my community that I have been doing readings for, I don't know that anyone's had the poof moment, but it's the feedback has been they understand the situation or the person or themselves differently when they're looking at it through this lens of this other soul echo of their own self.
Hmm. And that makes me think about, I think it's in the front of the Gene Keys book, where Richard Rudd talks about the fact that 93% of our DNA perhaps is referred to as junk DNA. In
Mm,
other words, science doesn't know what to make of it. And in the Gene Keys, he refers to it as our ancestral DNA. So it's like the reason it's not linear and disorganized is because it's all of these 7 generations perhaps of information that is being passed along to us. And I imagine that that's what you're working with, is those things. And those things, we're not consciously aware of it. So we're trying to do everything in this life. And yet there's all these things that are from the past, the distant past. Is that what
Yeah.
you're referring to?
Well, it's definitely part of what I'm referring to,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Because sometimes it's hard for me to articulate it, but the information that's come through for me is we have our ancestral information where, say, it's this physical form that I am, and the ancestors that have come before this physical form in this world. We also have our um, soul threads that are part of us that may not have come out of this physical ancestral DNA form,
Mm.
but they also influence our life that's going on. Um, it's funny because I'm like, oh, what can of worms do I open up? Because there's so much information that comes flooding through, and it's hard to explain, especially on a podcast where people can't see
Mm-hmm.
what I'm talking about. But one of the pieces of information, like a lot of people also use the term higher self, right? And earlier in the conversation, I made it a point to say oversoul instead of higher self. And so my belief with this and the information that I've gotten is if you are the candle, you are the flame, you are the fire. Your higher self is that wick it's always there. The wick is always present, and the flame will not be there if there is no wick. And so that higher self is that part that never leaves us. It's our intuition, and it's that part that's embodied within us.
Mm.
And our oversoul, if you can imagine now this wick and this flame, that's one candle. And our oversoul is like the lantern. And within that lantern, you could put many lights. And those are all threads of us. Said differently, um, if you look at your hand is one hand, but there's all the different digits that are happening here. And you're maybe the index finger, but the middle finger and the ring finger and the pinky and the thumb are all different threads. And so this can be past, this can be future, this can be present and coexisting, this can be in form, this can be in light. All of that also influences the being, the embodiment that we are right now.
Mm.
So, yeah. And some of those fingers, they feel a little bit independent, but we're aware when we move one of those threads, the other threads are aware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a great description. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And so the other question I wanted to ask is about light language. I've had a few people on the podcast that talk about light language. Some have shared light language. And I'm curious because everyone kind of has a different description of what it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, I experience it most of the time as sounds, but I've also seen it as being visual and movement. So there's all
Yeah.
sorts of different ways it can be expressed. But again,
Yeah.
for someone who's never heard the term light language before, what would you say to them?
Well, it's so funny that you're asking me this question because on New Year's Eve, I was thinking about that. For me, it's my oversoul expressing through me, the light language. And so it could be any one of those threads that are expressing through me, of my oversoul is coming through. It is my essence. And, I think for some people channel. I don't consider myself a channeler. I'm not channeling a different being. I'm getting basically direct information from my oversoul, from beyond my higher self to the oversoul to source. And so when light language comes through for me, it's very kind of interesting, and I'm not going to play with it all here for you right now, but because we've all lived many, many lives, it can come through in many different ways. And so it can be interdimensional, it can be elemental that comes through because we don't always embody as a being in form. Sometimes we come through as something like light, right? And so light has a sound, water has a sound. If it's Pleiadian or Syrian, that has a sound. With the Sweat Lodge, one of the things that have come through for me is ancient Lakota language has come through. Some of it has been similar to what is present day Lakota language, and then it's a little bit morphed. And I mean, I did not know a lick of Lakota before. And in fact, one of the words that came through was a name that I was called in this language. And I didn't even know it was in the Lakota language. I thought it was just, oh, this is light language. And I was so just overtaken by this, what I was called, and it was running through me. And then somewhere, like it was like 8 months later, I came across a part of that, what I was called. And it was part of what information came through me. And I was fascinated to find out. I said, oh, this is that language. And some of it has its roots in other cultures. Sometimes it comes through and it sounds like cultures that we know in this world, and some of it's cultures in other. How it shows up for me auditorially, the pitch can be low, the pitch can be high. It can be anything. And I don't know that that's true for everyone. That's what's true for me. I've not really watched a lot or heard a lot of other
Mm-hmm.
people who do it. I do know some people do hand movements. Sometimes that happens for me. Sometimes that doesn't happen for me. But again, I think I said this earlier, was the information that has been shared with me is that whether I'm speaking it, whether I'm making hand movements, it's coming through me
Mm-hmm.
because it's a frequency.
Right.
It's a frequency. And so when I'm speaking it over someone or in a situation, for me, I see visual. I sometimes see colors. I see images. And then I have feelings, emotions. Sometimes I would call it like an inner explanation that's happening. And sometimes it's just a feeling of what it's about. And what can also happen when I'm working with someone is there's a connection of our stream of consciousness from our oversouls. And so sometimes someone else's light language will come through me and it will sound different because it's not mine, it's theirs. So it's very hard for me to explain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
You've definitely articulated layers that I expected to hear when I asked that question. And so I appreciate that because to me, it does sound like language that I've never heard before. And
Yeah.
so there is like an oral part of it. And
Mhm.
yes, it's frequency. I know the first time I heard it, I was like, what is this? I think it was on a insight timer during a
Yeah.
meditation. And this person was sharing light language. And I was like, what is that? Like, I've never heard this before. And luckily I was able to search for it and found the answer. And oh, this
Yeah.
is a thing. And it seems like so many people are sharing
Yeah.
light language in their own way now, which is really
Yeah.
fascinating.
And more will be opening up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And even within my own community, not that anybody else is speaking it at this moment, but I've had messages that they will. And again, it's available to us all. We
Right.
all can because we've all had these interdimensional
Mm-hmm.
lives. And so for me, when it came out of my mouth was making shapes and sounds that felt so bizarre to my human self,
Mm-hmm.
but yet it was finding these different shapes and sounds. And I mean, now I'm used to it, so I don't notice that anymore. But at first, it was like the most bizarre thing. And it wasn't like I was doing it. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like I was trying. It was just happening. But I think we all have that access, and it comes back to that. We can get help by being activated by someone else. We can activate ourselves. Being in nature and being in that wonderment, I think, is one of the best ways
Mm-hmm.
to access that. I would say for anybody who's interested in it, I would say don't chase the cat. Just let it land.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more we strive for it, we actually close off. Like when we're reaching for something, we reach out and we grasp and we close our hand every time, right? And so then we're not letting it in. So if we just open and sit still and open our heart, open our hands, open our mind, and then it can come. Because I certainly wasn't looking for it, following it, interested in it. Really, I had the very slightest awareness of it, and it arrived. But it arrived when I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
And people often want to rush to be ready, and that actually creates constriction.
Yeah. I mean, I think I know 5 or 6 people here in Nanaimo that are actively using doing light language,
Yeah.
and I think about the different circles that I'm a part of, and one of the things you just pointed to is really, really, really important to hear, I think, for myself and others is, that metaphor of opening our hand instead of grasping for something is really powerful because we're not meant to be like everybody else. We're meant to be how we're meant to be. And so it can be really easy to be comparing ourselves to, oh, that person just told this amazing story of all their visions and all the details of what they saw during this meditation we did. And myself, I'll be like, well, I didn't see anything. I had a different experience, and I'll minimize my experience because of what I saw that other person share. And why am I not like them? But I'm
Mhm.
not like them because I'm not meant to be like them. I've got my own
Mhm.
gifts, and it's usually the knowing of something and the feeling of something, and it's just a very different experience. It's not, anyway, not to say I can't access those other ways of being, but not yet. And if I'm
Right.
grasping for it, then I'm pushing it away, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And so if we're reaching, grasping for it, we're not actually landing in the frequency where it lives.
Right.
And so the being in the frequency is not like if someone say, well, how can I be in the frequency? Well, stop asking the question and just be right here, right now.
Hmm.
Just be in this moment, be with this breath, with this body, with this question, like this curiosity and these
Yeah.
questions. It, it's not easy until it is. And then when it
Hmm.
is, it's like so simple.
I, I just think about all the different ways that we do that in our lives. The
Mm-hmm.
chasing the cat. I mean, it's just a beautiful metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
We do it in so many
Yeah.
ways. We're trying to get somewhere. It's the being versus the doing, right? We've been conditioned that we have to be in action in order to change things, in order for things to happen. And there is
Yeah.
some truth to that, that we have to be an active part. But maybe our part is just to receive and let life happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Yeah.
easy,
Yeah. And
but it can be easy.
I think this is the thing.
Yeah,
It's not easy until it is. And then you realize, oh my gosh, the letting go was so
sure,
simple all along.
sure.
And another analogy I like to use, of course, is the waves and how when we look at someone else, well, how come they're able to do that and they've got that information and that awareness and that embodiment and I don't and I'm stuck and I'm trying and I'm reading all these books and I'm listening to all these podcasts and I'm doing all the things, right? If we think about waves, like when the wave goes out and part of the wave is rolling ahead of the other, but then this one will surpass that one. And it doesn't stay just everybody lined up, right? The wave ebbs and flows. And sometimes it's very soft and subtle and it's like a ripple, and sometimes it's crashing and rolling back onto itself. And that rolling back onto itself could be, redoing a few steps that we've already done, but could actually also be the turning of the tide when we're moving deeper into our embodiment. And sometimes they look the same,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
When I left Squamish 5 years ago, like, that definitely felt like a wave crashing, and I did not know what was ahead of me, and
Hmm.
it felt like the wave was rolling out and I was done, and really, it was the wave turning,
Yeah.
and everything opened up because now the tide's going in a different direction for me, and it's to be okay at whatever part of the wave you're in. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I can relate. Like when I left Squamish, I think I had a healing session with Gaia.
Yeah.
And at the end of that session, I was like, oh, I need to go. I need to move to the Okanagan. And
Mhm.
within 6 weeks, I was gone. I mean, everybody
Yeah.
was like, what? How did that? Like, what are you doing? Where are you going? And it happened so quickly.
Yeah. Mine was quick too. I think mine was like a 3 or 4 week turnaround
Yeah.
from
I
not
remember
knowing
that.
I was moving to totally being gone. And, I'm not saying not to make plans, but for me, the best unfoldings have come when I let go of trying to plan. And that's again, letting go of reaching and
Yeah.
grasping and just getting in the flow,
Hmm.
floating a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I think I would love to ask more questions, but I think this is a natural point to pause and just give everyone a chance to digest everything that you shared because it was a lot. And I think a lot of really helpful tidbits. So adding more to that is probably not the optimum thing to do. So I always like to close with one question, and the question I'll ask you to close with is, what's one simple way someone could connect with the sacred today?
Find the rhythm beneath the stillness, the beauty. There's beauty in everything. And for me, like beauty and creation go hand in hand, and that is sacred. And even in the hardest moments, there's beauty in it and there's sacred in it. It's this opportunity for growth. So slow down, open your hand, don't chase the cat. I mean, I know I'm saying more than one thing, but just be gentle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's great. It was so great to have this conversation and to share it with all the people that are going to listen. It's a real gift, I think. And I really think that you gave a way of expressing certain things that we often talk about in a way that I think I can just imagine people hearing it and going, "Oh, I really love that. That's really helpful." So thank you for that. And thank you for doing the work that you're doing in the world and showing up the way you do. And I look forward to many other conversations that aren't recorded.
Yes. They're always good. Every time we have a conversation, it's good. Yeah. All right.
So
Thank you
thanks so
so
much.
much. And thank you.
You're
Okay.
very welcome. Thank you for joining us on Sacred Sundays. I hope something in today's offering spoke to your spirit, stirred something true, or simply gave you a moment to breathe. If this conversation resonated, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, or share the podcast. It truly helps this work reach the people who are meant to find it. And if you'd like to explore more of my work or connect with me directly, you can visit rosstayler.com, and that is Tayler with ER.com. Until next time, may your day be slow and sacred.